Hello and welcome to Palace Intrigue. I am your host, Mark Francis. Well, having done this podcast for a few years now, it does seem that the group that prepared food for the Queen is a chatty bunch who love sharing anecdotes, like this one about the time the Queen was displeased with her meal. On one occasion, she discovered a dead slug on her dinner plate. The Queen's former servant, Charles Oliver, shared the story in his book, Dinner at Buckingham Palace. Oliver revealed that when the Queen and her late husband, Prince Philip, would eat together, they would keep a notepad next to their plates so they could make notes about the meal and give their feedback to the chef. Once, on a torn-off top sheet, the footman found the dead body of a slug. The Queen may not be as fancy as you'd expect. Former Buckingham Palace chef Darren McGrady said, "People always say, oh, the Queen must eat off gold plates with gold knives and forks. Yes, sometimes, but at Balmoral she'd eat fruit from a plastic yellow Tupperware container. The chef does 3 days menus and that gives us enough time to get all the produce in and prepare it. When the menu book goes up to the Queen, she puts a line through all the dishes she doesn't want. If she's out for dinner, she'll put a line through the page, and if she has a guest coming, she'll put 2 or 3 so we know she is entertaining." Graham Tinsley, a former royal chef and manager of the Welsh culinary team, shared some of the quirks and protocols associated with catering for the royal family that he experienced firsthand, including one that takes place at banquets. He explained to Hello magazine that when catering for royal engagements in Wales, a satellite kitchen would be set up on the grounds of Cardiff or Caerphilly Castle, then food would be transferred into the banquet on foot. For higher caliber banquets, we're required to put all our food, containers, knives and kitchen equipment through an X-ray machine whilst motorcycles then drove us into the castle. He also revealed that if they were catering for a heads of state banquet, that all the catering staff have to meet at a police station and get a motorcycle ride into Cardiff Castle. These extreme measures were only in place when heads of state were in attendance, he explained. He said, if we were just cooking for the royal family, we weren't always aware of the security. It only changed if there were heads of state coming over, and then the security was really, really tight. The dogs eat well too. As well as meticulously checking what the royal household will be eating each week, the Queen also reportedly insists her beloved Corgis have their own menus. McGrady said, the Corgis have their own menu. One day they'll have lamb, one day beef, and then another chicken. We had to make sure that all the meat was cut very finely and diced so there were no bones because we couldn't have them choking. The Mirror allays your fears that the dog food may be too dry. The dogs also have a special gravy that is poured on top of their food to make it even more delicious. And what's more, it's a special recipe that Her Majesty has created herself. In the book, All the Queen's Corgis, author Penny Juno writes that the pet's food is a variety of fresh cooked meat, vegetables and rice, prepared specially for them in the royal kitchens, topped with a little biscuit, homeopathic and herbal remedies when required, and a special gravy that, legend has it, is the Queen's own recipe. But you'd be mistaken if you think the food is just put into bowls and the pets head for a free-for-all. What actually happens at feeding time is a strict ritual. Dr. Roger Mugford, an animal psychologist who has worked for the royal household for decades, described witnessing the dogs' dinner time at Buckingham Palace. He told Town & Country magazine, their food was served by a butler in an eclectic collection of battered silver and porcelain dishes. As I watched, the Queen got the Corgis to sit in a semicircle around her and then fed them one by one in order of seniority. The others just sat and patiently waited their turn. While in her book, Penny Jura adds, whenever possible, the Queen feeds them herself, and it is an afternoon ritual, but not an unruly, frantic free-for-all. A footman brings the food and bowls on a silver tray and lays out a plastic sheet to protect the carpet. The Queen then sits them in a semicircle around her and does the rest. Palace Intrigue will be right back. The Queen is a stamp collector and has earned more than £100 million from her hobby, although a lot of her collection was inherited from people that had titles like King of England. According to the Telegraph, one stamp in particular, the Mauritian stamp, is not only the most valuable in her collection, but it's one of the most prized in the world and was valued at a staggering £2 million back in 2002. It originally belonged to her grandfather, King George V, who bought it at auction in 1904 for £1,450, at the time equivalent to about £60,000 today. The stamp went on display to the public in 2002 as part of a travelling exhibition to celebrate the Queen's Golden Jubilee. Over the years, the Queen has built an impressive collection, which is said to fill about 300 albums and about 200 boxes, all stored in a vault at St. James's Palace. Queen Victoria's second son, Prince Alfred, started the stamp collection in 1864. He then sold it to his brother, the future King Edward VII, who in turn gave it to his son, King George V, and it subsequently passed down to King George VI and finally to the Queen. When the Queen took over the collection, she decided to sell some of the surplus to requirement stamps at auction and use the cash to buy new editions. According to the Telegraph, the pieces she sold were a huge hit with buyers back in 2001, and her 200 items made £750,000. She spent $250,000 of the profit on a unique set of 10 penny blacks. Royal expert Phil Dampier told The Sun that she loves to show them off to visitors when they come to see her at Buckingham Palace. He said, "The Queen loves showing her stamp collection to visitors, say heads of state who stay at Buckingham Palace. It is one of her pride and joys, not only because she owns some of the world's most valuable stamps, but also because she is built on a family treasure and feels she has done her father and previous monarchs who owned it proud." And there you have it. If you'd like to email us, our address is thepalaceintrigue@gmail.com. Please follow us on Spotify, iTunes, Google Podcasts, or wherever you get your favorite shows. It really helps us out. I'm Mark Francis. My thanks to John McDermott. This is Palace Intrigue, and good times.